All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome. Yes, welcome to another Healthy Habits cooking demonstration. Today we're going to be doing a vegetarian fried rice. So I got asparagus, some kale, spinach, mushrooms, carrot. I got some broccoli. I got zucchini, a little bit of squash. We got some onion, cabbage, and beans. So that's 12 different vegetables that we're going to be eating up today. So on top of the vegetables that we're going to be putting in there, I also use some brown rice. And I'm also, as you may notice, I'm finishing up the egg right now. So whereas this is a vegetarian dish, there's no animal products. I'm just making some eggs just in case somebody does want it added to it. So for our main source of protein today, we're actually going to be using tofu. All right, so we haven't made a whole lot of vegetarian meals together. So today I want to highlight tofu. A lot of people don't know how to cook with tofu. A lot of people also don't know what tofu is made out of. So does anybody know what the main ingredient in tofu is? Soybean. Yep, soybean, absolutely. It is, it's a soybean. Yep, so soybean, there's a lot of soy in products. But what they do is they make soy milk. Has anybody ever had soy milk before? Yeah. Anybody ever had soy milk? Yeah. All right, it's like a product that you can make out of soybean. And what you do to make tofu is it's kind of the same process as making cottage cheese. In a way, there's differences, not the exact same, but it's a little bit of the same. Does anybody know how we make cottage cheese? How do you make cottage cheese? What's it made out of? It's made out of milk, yeah. Yeah, it's made out of basically soured milk. Yeah, it's like a controlled fermentation in a way. It's not quite fermenting, but you're letting it kind of go past its prime, grow a certain type of cultures and curds and bacteria, and then that's the cottage cheese. So with tofu, it's kind of around the same process. You make the soy milk, and then you let it curdle. You add some salt, and you add some, I believe it's called coagulants, so it helps it like kind of stick together and make it into the firm tofu that we're used to seeing today. So there's different kinds of tofu. There's firm, where you can, yeah, it's soft, but it still has a little bit of like a chewiness to it. So if you're trying to like substitute meat with soy or with tofu, usually you want it firm, so it can still have that chewiness, right? Some people eat tofu for breakfast. You can like put it in your yogurt because it doesn't have a lot of flavor. On its own, it has very little flavor. So what some people will do is they'll like put it in their yogurt. They'll mix it with some fruit. And then once it's done cooking, I'll take it off the heat, and either I'll put it on a pan or I'll just put it in a bowl, and I'll let it sit for about a half an hour or an hour. So the steam comes off, it dries out, and if you kind of see what we're left with now, they're like individual little grains. They're not going to stick or cake together, which is something that happens. All right, so I'm finishing up the egg. What I'm going to do is, since the rice is pretty much all set to go, I'm going to set that aside. I'm just going to set the eggs back here. Again, if anybody wants the eggs, you can just ask and we'll put that on at the very end.
So did you just scramble the egg?
I just scrambled the eggs.
Okay.
That's all I did. I just scrambled them on up, and that was that. All right. So now what you're going to want to do is start getting the vegetables ready. All right. So now some of these vegetables you can just throw right into the rice. Now what this is going to look like is at the very end, everything's going to come together in one pot. Okay? We're going to have the rice. We're going to have the veggies. But before you put everything in there, there's a couple things that you have to do. So like I mentioned, having too much water or too much liquid in the fried rice, it'll start getting cakey. It'll just be cakey. The best way that you can imagine, it starts clumping together, it starts mushing, it doesn't have the individual rice grains, which is how it's supposed to be. So carrots are one thing that'll cook as you're mixing it together at the very end. Peppers have a lot of liquid in them. So what I did earlier is I cooked the peppers ahead of time, and I got all the liquid out as much as I could. I minimized the moisture, and then I put it in here. So this is going to be our veggie bowl. So as I'm chopping veggies, you're going to put it in here. So peppers are one that have a lot of moisture that you want to cook out. Another one is mushrooms. We learned about that, right? Remember we cooked the mushroom soup. Remember we had to cook all that moisture out and then add in all the broth. So what you got to do is you got to cook the mushrooms out. So how I cooked these mushrooms was I added a little bit of water and a little bit of oil. When cooking mushrooms, especially the ones that you guys are going to find in your box today, which I believe are portobello, they come in little slices. They're either portobello or white mushrooms. But if you just put them in a pan with some oil and you cook them up, they'll likely soak up the oil, and then they won't cook. So what I do is I mix a little bit of water, a little bit of oil, put my mushrooms in there, and I just kind of cook them and mix them until all the moisture is out.
So you're sauteing them?
In a way, yeah. Yeah, sauteing. The main focus is to try to get the moisture out. Because at the very end, when everything comes together, you don't want any excess moisture. That is probably one of the most important things when making fried rice, that I've made that mistake many times. So we got the mushrooms, we got the, let me see, we also have the beans will need to get cooked. So the beans, if you just chop up regular green beans and toss them in at the end, they're going to be very crunchy. They're going to be very tough. It'll still be good, but I made that mistake where I just chopped up my green beans and I threw it on at the end, and it was like eating raw green beans. And it just kind of ruins the texture a little bit. So you're going to want to cook up the green beans. Cabbage, we're going to put into little strips. Onion, we're just going to do it in little chops. These guys, we're going to get all the vegetables prepped here in just a hot second. I have a volunteer who's going to come up and help us. We're not really going to cook these at all. We're going to cook them a little bit, but at the end, while we're mixing it together, it's going to kind of get cooked with the rice. And it'll have a little bit of a crunch, but we're going to cook down just a little bit. Because if we cook down it too much, it becomes soggy. So in that sense, I'm referring to the zucchini. If you just cook it with some water in the pan, and you get kind of squishy because the seeds on the inside there's a lot of moisture inside. So without further ado, I'm going to season up our tofu and get that going. And then we're going to chop up some vegetables for a couple of minutes. I'm going to talk to you guys. Whereas tofu is not technically fermented, it goes through an aging process similar to fermentation. So is anybody here familiar with fermentation or know any fermented foods?
Sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut, absolutely. We're going to talk about sauerkraut because I have cabbage right here, which is one of the main ingredients in sauerkraut. And there's a whole science behind it that I want to share with you guys. Any other ones that we can think of at the top of our heads? Kombucha, absolutely. Yeah, kombucha, it's a fermented tea. Wine, absolutely. Wine, beer, some people don't know, but bread is a fermented food. You got to ferment the yeast and the sugars in order to get the carbon to make the bread. So we're going to talk more about that in a second. But right now, I got my tofu. I got it in a separate bowl. I drained it. Like I said, you want to get all the liquid out. If you have a cheesecloth, or if you have paper towel, or if you want to just squeeze it, you can just kind of squeeze some of the moisture out. The more that you get out at this point, the better it's going to be going down.
If you use paper towel, would that absorb the liquid faster or more of the liquid from the tofu?
I'm sorry, can you...
Paper towel.
What about? I'm sorry.
If you put the tofu on a paper towel.
Yeah, it'll help soak it up more. Is that what you're asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what I would suggest doing too. Or cheesecloths. People have cheesecloths, you'll just squeeze and strain it. If you have a strainer, you can always kind of, but I think paper towel would probably be the best. So I just did a little bit of garlic powder. I'm just going to do a little bit of salt and then a little bit of pepper. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of want to mix it together. Has anybody here cooked with tofu before? Can you raise your hand if you have? May I see? We got one person who's cooked with tofu before. Okay. So it's really high in protein. It's not that hard to cook with, but what we're going to do is we're going to make it into little chunks. You're going to kind of basically mix all the seasoning together, At this point, if you wanted to add an egg to it, if you wanted to add breadcrumbs to it, this would be a good time. You can start doing that. That'll help soak up the moisture, and it'll also help it cook a little bit. Let me get my oil going.
It starts as a liquid, you said, because it's made from milk. Is that what it was? Milk and soy?
It's made from soy milk.
Soy milk.
Exactly.
Okay, so how long does it take for it to become a solid like it is now? It's a solid, you know.
You know, that's a great question. And if I don't know exactly, I've never made tofu before. But I have made kombucha, I've made bread, I've made cheese before, but I've never made tofu. So to answer your question, what was your question again? I'm so sorry. What was your question again?
Starting from soy and
How
milk,
long does it
which is
take?
a liquid, but when it becomes tofu, it's a solid.
Exactly.
Right. So how long does it take before it becomes a solid
You know, I'm not
protein?
sure about the time frame. I would say at least a couple of weeks. Could be more than that. But unlike bread, where you only need to let it raise for an hour or two, if I had to guess, this is probably more of a couple weeks kind of process. It's a great question, but something I don't know, because I've never made it before. You can make it. I've never done that before, though. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. I put a little bit in here. Remember how I always do? I put some oil in it, and I put a couple of ingredients so I can look and see when the oil starts getting ready to put the rest of it in. So at this time, I'm going to shift gears over to here and start prepping the vegetables. So if I could have my volunteer, please come on up. We're going to chop up some veggies. I'm going to share with you guys a couple of...
So that's how you got apron.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know our aprons have been getting a lot of love lately. All right, has everybody gotten a recipe? Everybody got a recipe? All right. So far we have added so with this you can add in chicken or shrimp. I forgot to mention, it doesn't have to be vegetarian. I'm making it vegetarian. But you can add in chicken or shrimp. So first you're going to pan sear that first, or egg, or tofu. And then you're going to add in the rice, heat it up a little bit so it gets a little crispy. Now we don't want to use olive oil for this. We don't really want to use any kind of oil that has a high combustion point because you're going to be frying it up. So what we're going to use today is we're going to use a little bit of canola oil. I'll use a little bit of olive oil at the end, and then we're going to use some sesame oil for the flavor. All right. So now that this is boiling, I'm going to throw this in, and we're going to shift gears over there. I'm coming right over there. We'll walk through it together. So I'm going to help you out too. Okay, I'm just going to let that cook for a little bit. Right behind you. All right, so what we're going to do over here. Now, I'll chop the onion. I'll save you from the tears. I'm going to have you work on those and also work on these.
Do you want the ends on?
I'll tell you right now. So, what I got for today is I got raw green beans. These are just regular green beans. The reason I got this is because these are what they will look like in your garden. If you guys ever grow beans, pole beans, or bush beans, this is kind of what they look like when you pick them. So this is them in their most raw form. So as we head into gardening season, I'm going to start highlighting foods that you can use exactly in your garden and how to incorporate them in your dishes. So you can do regular green beans, or you can put them inside of different dishes. So you're going to want to get the ends off. Some people eat the ends. Some people, you can save this and put it into a smoothie or something similar. I personally just get rid of the ends. I'm not a huge fan. So what you'll do is you'll snap the ends, or if you want to use your knives, what you can do is kind of line up a couple of them. This is how I do it. So you make sure that the tips are kind of along the same way. You set them down, and then you just chop all the ends off in one little cut. So you're just left with the ends. And then what you do is you do the exact same thing with the other side, is you just get them all lined up so all the tips are the same. And then you just kind of chop off the tips in there. So then you're left with all these green beans. And I just did like 8 of them at a time. So you can do that, or you can do them one at a time. You can do it the old-fashioned way where you snap the ends, then you chop them. Yeah, you could do that. So whatever you feel like. Doing.
Can I cut them in half?
Absolutely. So with the green beans, you can either buy canned green beans, which are already softened because they're in a brine, or if you want to buy the fresh beans, what you're going to want to do is we have to blanch or steam them first. So guys, I got some hot water right here. It's all ready for us once we have our beans ready. I'm going to put them in there at high heat for about a minute, 2 minutes. A little bit, just enough to get that super crunch out. So you're going to want to chop them about an inch or so thick. Just about that. Oh, wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Can't forget about frozen beans. That's a great option. So with frozen beans, if you want to use those, that looks perfect. And I'll just start putting those right there. That's perfect. Appreciate you. Frozen beans, you can use those too. What might you want to do with frozen beans before you add them to the fried rice, though? Say again? Just thaw them? Yep, you're going to want to thaw them, but also, what are you going to want to do?
Drop them.
You're going to want to...
Several minutes.
Yeah. Or the biggest thing that you're going to want to do is get the moisture out. They're frozen, so there's going to be ice crystals all over on the inside, outside, so you're just going to want to kind of do what we're doing here. Like I did with the pepper, which I did off camera. I put the chopped peppers in here, and I just kept mixing and mixing on medium heat until there was less steam and more sizzle. So you could see it was like the steam wasn't coming up, but it was still bubbling, and you could just see that it was getting... Exactly. The water evaporated off, but the oil was still there. And that's why I usually add a little bit of both at the beginning and then put my vegetables on top. Now, that's just something that I do. I don't know if that's mainstream or if that's what other people who cook do, but that's what I do, and it's worked for me so far. All right. So I'm going to let that tofu. So tofu, it depends on how you want it. I kind of want it to be the same consistency as egg. So like we made this egg over here. You see it's its own little piece. It's got a little bit of, not chewiness, but it's got some give, a bite to it. You know, you can bite down, you can feel it, it holds together well. With tofu, it's a little bit different. It's still, you know, it's still a little soft. So the more that you cook it, especially on oil and stuff, the tougher it'll get. Yes?
I stir fry mine, and it makes it crispier.
You stir fry the tofu?
Yeah, but you're not using any oil there?
I put a little bit of canola oil in there, just a little bit. I might put a little bit more in, but right now I just kind of want. There's still way too much water in here right now, so I'm going to keep waiting in. But yes, that's the best way to do it. Is a little bit of oil. So once the water evaporates, you won't see all this steam coming off, but you'll still hear the bubbling, and you can move it, and you'll see it'll slowly start sticking to the bottom. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? When you're cooking this, you don't want to cover it. Why don't I want to cover it? Yeah, because you want the moisture to escape. Absolutely. All right. So we're going to shift on over here. That's perfect. That is wonderful. All right. So we got our green beans. I'm going to chuck these in here real quick. Well, actually, I'm going to turn that up a little bit, and then we'll put it in there. And then we're going to blanch those for a little bit, just so they're a little softer. All right. Now, we're going to start chopping up the squash and the cabbage. Now, somebody mentioned sauerkraut earlier. Sauerkraut's a fermented dish. It's usually made out of like cabbage, sometimes onion, carrots, but it's very sour, hence the name sauerkraut. Does anybody know? So in order to ferment something, what needs to be present?
Vinegar.
Say it again.
Vinegar.
One more time, I'm so sorry.
Vinegar.
Not vinegar. Good guess. Vinegar, also another fermented item. Vinegar. To get vinegar, you got to ferment either wine or apple cider, but not vinegar. Good guess. What do you need inside of anything, basically, to ferment it, including sauerkraut? Not salt. Good guess. It's something living.
Bacteria.
You need some bacteria. Yeah, you need some bacteria. Now remember, not all bacteria is bad. We got bacteria in our gut. We got bacteria all around us. You have bacteria probably in your coffee. You got bacteria everywhere. Doesn't mean it's bad. Yeah, they've evolved with us just like we have with them. So with sauerkraut, how do we get the bacteria into the fermentation? Not sugar. Good guess. That's how you feed the fermentation process.
We don't know. Tell us.
All right. Where does this grow? It grows in the ground. That's where you get all the bacteria from. Yeah, all the bacteria from the ground gets on your vegetables. No matter how hard you wash it, there will still always be some in there. All right, so to ferment, there's bacteria on here, and you're just using the natural bacteria that are present on the foods to get the fermentation. All right. So how we're going to do this, I'm just going to chop it into a little bit, and if you don't mind just chopping it a little bit finer, we're just going to do basically just little, just little pieces. Nothing too much bigger than that, but I think that should be fine. It calls for ribboned, but ribbon can be kind of difficult to get, especially when you're working with something like this. But a good way, you can also chop up cabbage. So some people, especially if you have challenges with arthritis or gripping a knife and pushing down, you can take off the leaves. Okay, this is an easier way. Take off the leaves, roll it into like a little taco,
And then slice.
and then you can slice into like little tiny ribbons.
Oh, just like you do greens.
Exactly.
We don't want to use this, do we?
No. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna have you do it like this. I like this better. That was my mistake. I apologize. So if you don't mind, can you make them into like
I
little
can
ribbons
do
like that?
that.
Is that
Yes,
easier? Okay.
yes.
So what we're doing is we're making them into little ribbons. They're not going to be this long side of the fried rice. They'll probably be about half that. We're going to add that in. The knife? I did not sharpen that. I don't know who did. It glides though, doesn't it? All right, so I am going to add a little bit more oil. Just a little bit to help. And if you guys will notice, it's starting. So it's starting to cook. You get a little bit more firm. Yeah. All right. So while you're working on that, I'm going to start chopping up the squashes. Now again, if you wanted to put the squash in and cook it on its own, you could. But it's just, in my experience, it adds a lot of moisture to the dish, and they don't tend to hold up their weight very well. Now, asparagus, that's another thing that I am not going to cook before putting into the fried rice. Has anybody ever eaten asparagus raw? Has anybody ever put like asparagus on a sandwich or in a wrap before? No, I didn't until recently, until I saw a recipe with vegetable wraps with turkey cheese and asparagus just like this in the wrap. And you eat it just like that. And it's delicious. Most people feel like you have to cook it, but you don't. That looks perfect. And if you don't mind,
I can do that.
that looks
yes.
wonderful.
This is going to be a beautiful dish with this red cabbage.
Mm-hmm.
Very colorful.
So that was yes, absolutely. That was actually it. There's different kinds of cabbages, but I like the red because it adds a pretty color to it.
Someone in the chat is saying Chippendale. Chippendale is the name. Chippenade.
Yeah, I was like, not Chippendale.
That's the style of cutting, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Chippenade, thank you.
You're thinking about dancers.
That's so funny. All right, I'm gonna put our beans in. When I cook, I have a tendency to tell myself that I will remember that that's on the stove while I go do something else, and I almost always forget. So I'm gonna set a timer for that. When this goes off, we'll take the beans off of that. We'll do that for 3.5 minutes. We'll see what that takes us. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to start chopping up the squash. How I'm going to do it is in little bite-sized triangular pieces. So you don't have to do it like this, but this is how I cut it. I make it into fourths. And then, can everybody see what I'm doing right here? Okay. I put them into fourths like that, and you just chop them like that. So then you have little, about this size, little bits. So I got a bowl right here, just full of my vegetables that are ready to be put into the fried rice. Wonderful. If you'd like to put that in there, you can. Appreciate you. I'll probably start. Say it again.
Is it sticking?
Sticking. Let me see. Last time I looked, it was still working. No, it's doing just. Yeah. So I'm probably not going to get all the steam out of this. I'm probably not going to get all the moisture because tofu is very airy, and like we mentioned, it's made out of milk, so it's got so much moisture in it. But what you're going to do is try to cook as much as you can down. So I'll let that go just a little bit longer. Okay, we'll put our veggies in. I'm going to start on the onion. Would you mind doing that with this, please? You don't have to do it the way I did. You can always chop it into, do it however you feel comfortable.
Oh, I want to try it your way.
Let me know if it's easy. Because just because I do it one way, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the easiest. Sometimes I make life difficult for myself. You know what I'm saying?
Well, lately you've been making it very easy for me.
Good. How about anybody else? Have been learning a lot from the cooking demonstrations over the last couple months? Yeah. Wonderful. Well, like we mentioned, we are going to be continuing on through the month of May. We already have our recipe picked out for next week, but I won't tell you guys what it is. If you want to know what it is, come find me after the class. So I'm going to chop up the onions.
You want me to put this in here?
Yes, please. Thank you. That tofu's getting about there. About a minute left on the beans. All right. So kombucha. While we're on the slight topic of fermentations, does anybody know what kombucha is made out of other than the tea?
Cabbage.
No, not cabbage. Good guess. So kombucha is it's made out of tea, so it's a drink. It's a fermented type of drink. You can add different flavors to it. Has anybody ever had that before? Has anybody ever had like a probiotic soda?
Yes,
Anything similar?
I
Okay.
have.
So they do is they take tea, they take regular black tea, some sugar, and something called a SCOBY. It's spelled S-C-O-B-Y. Now what it stands for is a symbiotic relationship of, symbiotic community of bacteria and yeasts. So to make this specific drink, you have bacteria and yeasts that form a colony. Kind of looks like a little patty. I have pictures if anybody wants to find me after. I have kombucha that I've made over the past years. And what that does is that creates the fermentation. We're not going to go into too much detail about it. If you want to research it yourself, it's really interesting how you make it. Sure.
Is there a process or at the time for fermenting when you're fermenting vegetables or things like a kombucha or whatever? Is there a time period that they have to age or something when they do it?
How long does the fermentation process usually take? So, right behind you. So for, to make kombucha, it takes about, I think, 3 weeks. That's about how long I go. So I like my coffee black. I like plain seltzer water. So I like very dry kind of flavors, dark flavors. So I like my kombucha very, very acidic. So I let it ferment longer. I usually don't put a lot of sugar in it. But real quick, while we're on this, so we got our veggies prepped. We got our asparagus, which is the last thing that we're going to do. Then we're going to mix it all together. I'll tell you in just a second. Now what we're going to do right now is I took the tofu off the heat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back on the heat. with just a little bit more oil. I'm going to add in some of our greens. Now, the reason I want to do this is because the greens right now take up a ton of space. Am I right? Yeah, they're taking up this whole bowl. Once they're cooked, it'll probably take up about a quarter of the bowl, right? So before I put in my rice, before I'm trying to stir all this stuff up in here and it's flying out, which has happened before, I'm going to put in some of my greens and cook it down.
Jake, this is a combination of greens. What combination are you using today?
Wonderful question. So if you guys look at your recipe, we have not only spinach, but we also have kale. So we got some spinach, we got some kale. You can add in collards if you want. You could add in, you could do arugula. You could do any kind of green that you feel like. I'm going to add that in there, a little bit more water. Now the water, I know we just cooked out all the water from the tofu, and you're like, why are you putting more water in? It's just going to help add a little bit more steam to try to cook down these vegetables a little bit. A little bit more. I will cover that because we're cooking something right now. If you guys look at the beans, they got a little bit more give to them. You can kind of bend them around. They're like regular green beans, and they're nice and bright green. So if you cook this too much, it'll start turning a dark green. Yeah, like a dark green. That's how you know you've overcooked it. So if it gets a bright color green, it means it's good. If you overcook it, you'll notice it'll turn into a dark forest green, and it also usually more mushy. So
Could you steam them with a steamer, those green beans? Can you steam them?
Yeah, you could steam them. Same concept, though. You're going to want to make sure you don't do it too long.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I just put it in some water and just basically boiled it and then strained it. So everything's looking pretty. The last thing that we got to do with the vegetable prep is get the asparagus ready. Shelby cooked something with asparagus. And she taught us, you got to basically bend it, and where it breaks naturally, you can pretty much guarantee that's where it needs to be. What I do sometimes, this is just me, I will keep these, and I'll munch on the tips, and just there's usually some still that you can eat, so go through each one and just get it out. You don't have to do that, that's just me. Asparagus is one thing that, unfortunately, is a little difficult to get on the cheap. Most asparagus is around $5 or so. Sometimes you can get lucky, though, to save some money and look for the smaller bunches. So a lot goes a long way, especially because with this dish, you're not necessarily, asparagus isn't the main star of the show. You can get away with getting a smaller bunch. Whereas you may see, I got a couple bigger bunches. So what I'm going to have you do, if you'd be so kind, I'm going to have you snap and then set the done ones back in the bowl, and then I'll chop them, okay? So if you can just help me snap.
You want me to use all of them?
Yeah, why don't we, yeah. Yep, we'll use all of them, and then what we don't have, I can always send home with folks.
Oh, I see what you mean. This doesn't bend. This is hard.
There you go. So, yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So fun thing about asparagus, one of the reasons that they're so expensive, or that they're less affordable than other vegetables, is because they are, I believe, biennials, so they take 2 years to grow. So whereas most vegetables, usually around 2. I feel like it can sometimes take more, but it usually takes right about 2 years to grow. It's very, very, very rare to get your asparagus planted and harvested in one season. Question?
When buying asparagus, sometimes I see it be a water, and then sometimes it just be dry. They have it dried out. Is it best to get it like that? I mean, do it the bottoms.
You're talking about when you harvest asparagus.
No, when I buy it in the supermarket, sometimes they have it in water. Just virgin water.
Yes.
And then some of them just be dry.
Yep.
Just laid out dry.
So the question was, when sometimes you go to a grocery store or supermarket, so the bottoms are in water, kind of like flowers in a vase. Now the reason for that is because the bottoms do tend to dry out, but also asparagus, I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because they're a stem, like a stemmy plant, but they tend to wilt quicker than some other vegetables. So having it in water helps keep the water flowing through It kind of helps keep it alive a little bit longer. These I bought yesterday, and as you can see, they hung out in my fridge with no problem. I will say storage tips. If you're going to put it in the fridge, I would definitely put it in water because it'll wilt faster if it's cold. And don't put it in the back of your refrigerator by the vents because you can freeze, or sometimes you'll come out and you'll see that they got little frozen on the outside, little icicle crystals or stuff. So, all right. So, yes.
You said that soy has a lot of protein in it.
It does.
So when you drink coffee, because it's made from soybeans, correct? Is the coffee made? Do you get a certain amount of protein through when they do the coffee also?
Because it's a bean? That's interesting. So, if you were to eat coffee beans, I don't know the exact protein content, but I can almost guarantee you there's some. But we don't eat coffee beans. If somebody wants to fact check that, feel free. I've never actually looked up. I'm just assuming. But drinking coffee, we're not eating the bean. So even if there was protein in it, drinking your coffee, it's not going to be in there because you're not actually eating the bean itself. You're drinking the acids and liquids that are being pulled out of it. So we have a question.
Just there's 15 grams of protein per 100 grams of roasted coffee bean.
So that sounds comparable to most beans, if I had to guess. We got another fact check.
You can have roasted coffee beans.
You can.
Yes.
Yes, you can eat them.
Yes.
Sometimes people will eat them covered in chocolate,
Yeah.
but you can eat them on their own. So it does sound like coffee, yes, absolutely. Now, since this is from soybean, we're eating it. This has most of the bean with some stuff removed and some processes. But yeah, that was a good question, actually. That was a fun question. So our tofu's good. Our greens are good. The asparagus is finishing up. What I'm going to do now is, with the asparagus, you're just going to want to put it into little, about 1-inch pieces or so. What I usually do is I usually start at the top. I usually, like the beans, I usually like to line up all the little heads at the same time.
They cook faster, don't they, the heads?
They do, actually. I do. The only reason I know that is from experience, but yeah. So I usually do them about 1 inch or so. And then I'll put those in our veggie bowl.
Put the heads in there also?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm not putting in there is the woody bottoms.
All right.
And I've already taken care of the woody bottoms.
Lovely. All right. Put our onion in there.
You know, when it comes to asparagus, don't you kind of feel like you throw away, it's almost like you're throwing away a big part of the asparagus. You know, like when you really learn how to do it, because when I first, tried to pop them or whatever, I didn't do them right the first time, and then when you cook them, you realize, oh, it's something wrong here. And then once you learn how to do it, you say, oh, okay, this is the way you do it. Okay, okay, but I feel like I'm throwing away a lot, and I don't really believe in waste.
So that's a great question. So I have a cookbook. What's it called? It's called, it'll come to me in a moment. But it is a book that is specifically about how to reuse the discards while you're cooking.
Oh, okay.
So exactly. I think it's called Plant You. Can you fact check that? Plant
Can you make
You.
a broth out of it? A broth? Can you just boil
You could make a veggie broth. You can make a
veggie.
vegetable broth. I think it's called Plant You Cookbook.
Yes, plant you scrappy cookie.
There we go. All right, so it's called Plant You Scrappy Cooking. So it's specifically about using the scraps from when you're cooking towards other dishes for that exact reason. If you don't want to repurpose it, another good way to let it not go to waste is by composting it. So you can put it in your garden. We'll talk about composting in the Ask the Gardener program this year.
Did I do okay?
You did wonderful.
Well, it felt like I was massaging that asparagus.
Yeah.
Trying to find
Uh-huh.
that breaking point.
It's kind of fun though. It's
It
like,
was,
yeah.
it was.
All right. I think that is it. All right, can I get a hand for our volunteer? Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you.
Welcome. All right. So, now that all the prep is ready, now that everything is all set, we're going to start adding everything in the one bowl, okay?
Yes.
So we got our brown rice. I'm going to add that in. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to do, since there's a lot of people and I'm making a lot, I'm going to do it in 2 pots. So we're going to fry them just in 2 of them, just to make sure that we're not having too much in one thing at the same time, okay? All right, so I'm going to move half of that in there, half of that in there. You're going to add in your rice. Now, if you look at the recipe says to fry up the rice on its own. I'm just going to toss it in there right now, just for sake of time. Okay. You're going to add in your vegetables. Now, can everybody see this bowl? Everybody see this? Bowl full of veggies? All right, so you're going to want to mix it all together before putting in there. It's just going to make your life a little easier.
So colorful.
Isn't that pretty?
Yes.
All those colors.
Now, could you have used a red onion opposed to that yellow onion?
Absolutely. Yeah, I used white onion just because it. Yup, you could use any kind of substitutions. You are pretty much okay. I used white onion just because it has less of a kick, because we're not really cooking the onion as much. We are with the rice, but with red onion, it just has more of an intense flavor profile, in my opinion, in my experience.
The red onion?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's good.
It can be, yeah, but some people don't like that too sharp of an onion taste. Thank you, Dayana. So we got just a couple of more minutes of this, and we're going to start plating. And we're going to have Dayana come up and do a little discussion about how to read nutrition labels, how to see nutrition labels, what exactly it means on here. So if we look down at our nutrition facts for this recipe, it's pretty simple, right? It doesn't really look like the nutrition facts that you may find in the store, which are a little bit less easy to read. But it's pretty much the same stuff. It tells you, what's in there, how much per serving, and we're going to break that down a little bit more with Dayana in a couple of minutes.
What about the garlic? On this list, on this list.
Garlic?
Yeah, garlic is listed.
Got it right here. I add in the garlic powder at the beginning.
Okay.
But you know what? A little bit extra doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I'm reading the ingredients, and it says 3 cloves of garlic.
3 cloves.
Yes.
So if you buy, I always buy minced garlic. Fresh garlic, even better. But sometimes it can be kind of difficult to chop, especially finely minced. But what you can use like a food processor. But with these jars, it says right on the side, 1 teaspoon of this is equal to about 1 clove of garlic. So if you buy this and you're like, oh, I don't know how to, my recipe says 3 cloves of garlic, how am I going to use it for that? It says right on the side. It should tell you exactly how much right on the lid. So we're going to mix all this together. Just hands raised. Does anybody want egg? Anybody want some egg on theirs?
I'll try it.
Okay.
We'll try it.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll make some with egg. If you want the vegetarian, just make sure that you specify if that's okay. Okay. All right. Last but not least, the final ingredient: sesame oil. Without sesame oil, it just doesn't taste like fried rice. That's in my experience. True and true. I'm going to add in some of it. Now, it looks like I'm adding a ton, but this is about how much. It's only coming out like 1 or 2 drops at a time.
I
So
heard someone say soy sauce, that has a lot of sodium in it.
it sure does.
The less sodium.
You could get the reduced sodium. That's what I've gotten before. The reduced sodium, and it does just fine. Okay. With sesame oil, there's one ingredient, toasted sesame seed oil. So, let me know when you guys start smelling the sesame. You might have to wait until the dish is in front of you to start smelling it, but I smell it because it's right in front of me.
You're in front of it.
I know, right? Yes.
Is there a purpose for the eggs being put in, or just because of the recipe, the way they do the fried rice?
You're asking if there's a purpose of the egg? The egg is just to add a protein, a little added texture, makes it more of a like a complete meal. All right. And
The ingredients, it says tofu or 2 eggs.
exactly. Yep. I went ahead to make this more of a substantial meal, and I just got them both for you guys,
Thank you.
so you can have the options. Absolutely. All right. And there you have it. We've got our vegetarian fried rice.
Yay!
There we go. There is plenty. I repeat, there is plenty here. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit as much as we can on these plates. We might even be able to send some home with you guys. But I'm going to get this stuff out of the way, give Dayana a quick second to get situated, and then she's going to come up and start talking to you guys about nutrition facts. So let me clean up. Let me get out of the way.
Are you going to add the broccoli?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll steam that up. And the beans.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. See, this is why we chose you.
I'm watching.
Good. Can't let
And I do
anything.
repeat your recipes. at
Good.
home.
You keep them too?
Yes, I do.
Good. And like we say too, you can always go back online and see all of these once again.
All right. I mean, isn't the live stream open?
At 1 o'clock, I believe the live stream ends.
Okay. Okay. All right, everybody. So good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
I know we only got a few minutes, so I won't take up too much time, but I want to talk a little bit more about nutrition labels and nutrition facts because Jake mentioned some of the nutrition facts for this vegetarian fried rice recipe. So let's just get more and talk a little bit more about why we need to read nutrition labels and certain things to look for, right, when you're reading a nutrition label. So first off, we read nutrition labels because they're a crucial element that helps to inform the decisions that we make when we're eating food, when we're buying our food, when we're trying to compose a meal, and things like that. Are there any specific categories or any specific things that you look for when you read a nutrition label?
I'm looking for the sodium
Serving
content.
size.
You look for the sodium content,
Sugar.
salt, sugars,
Best if used by.
best if used by, absolutely. All of these things help to inform us. So specifically, I'll look for calorie count. I look for the sodium is one of the first things I look for is the amount of sodium that's inside. I look at the ingredients to see if there's any, artificially added ingredients, if there's any high fructose corn syrup, all those things add the sodium, they add the sugar, they add the fat that we don't want. And so just looking at the nutrition label on this picture, just starting at the very top. So there's different fonts, different sizes of everything on the label. Certain things are bigger in font because those things, they want to make sure that you see them first. So for example, if you look at the calories on any nutrition label, the calories is in a big, bold font, right? And the calorie number is in an even bigger, bold font. So for example, on this nutrition label, it says that there are 240 calories. Now, when you look at a nutrition label, right, it'll say that there's 4 servings, right? On this example, there's 4 servings per container, and the serving size is 1.5 cups. So when you're looking at that, that means that with those 4 serving sizes, if you're eating this by yourself, that means that you can come back and you can eat from this 4 different times. Or if you're eating with your family, there'll be at least 1 serving for you, spouse, and your kids. And there's different serving sizes. Like this is just one for an example. Some serving sizes could be 2, some could be 6, some could be 10. I know on a bag of chips, the serving size can be pretty big. Like one bag of chips has about 20 serving sizes in there. And that could just even be from a big bag at the store. But does anybody know, so for the calories, it says 240. We'll use this as an example. How do you calculate the total amount of calories in the food? So there's 240 calories per the 1 serving, but how do you figure out how many calories that you have in the entire box or the entire packaging of food that you have? What was that? So you take the amount of servings and you take the number of calories and you multiply. So we would multiply 240 calories by 4 servings, and that will let us know that that's the total amount of calories that we have in that one food packaging. Now, when it comes to calories, I look to have lower calorie counts. Anything, it's recommended anything 400 and lower is a good calorie size or a good calorie amount to have per your 1 serving, just because again you're recommended to have about 2,000 plus calories throughout the day. So you want to make sure that you're eating a small amount of calories throughout the day, a small amount in this meal, small amount in that meal, a small amount in your next meal, plus if you have snacks or anything, because you don't want to pile on too many calories in just one meal, because at that point then you'd be overeating. Some other things that I try to look for is the sodium amount. So with all of these in the middle, right, all of these that are inside of this red box, these are the categories that you want to keep your numbers low. And you guys mentioned that, right? Fat, the amount of sodium, the amount of total sugar, the amount of added sugars. These you want to keep low because when you're cooking and you're adding in your seasonings, or you add butter if you're frying, right? All of those things add on additional amounts of these specific elements. So if you're cooking something that might have a lot of fat in it already, something maybe like pork or beef, it already has a lot of natural fat, and then you go and then you add oil to it, and then you're adding even more fat. So it would be best to try to have, you know, a meat option or any other option that has a lower fat concentration. And with the daily value, do any of you guys know what the daily value is? You'll see it'll say like daily value percentages. There's like a small section for it at the bottom of every food label, right? So the daily value talks about how much of a certain nutrient or how much of a certain element is inside of this serving of food per the amount that you're supposed to eat in a day. So for example, the daily value of sodium on this food label is 19%. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. You want to keep the daily value for things like fat, sodium, salt, and sugar at, it says 20% or lower is the recommendation. For those, I would recommend getting as close to 10% or lower as possible, especially for things like sodium, which most times sodium, the daily value percentage is pretty high. It's going to be close to like 20% unless you get a low sodium option. Now, there are other options on here that are on a food label that you do want to keep the daily values high, and those are the micronutrients. So looking back in the red box, all the way at the bottom, it says we have the micronutrients of vitamin D, we have calcium, we have iron, and we have potassium. Now, these are all of the elements that we do want to make sure are plentiful, because these are going to help us to continue to be healthy, right? To continue to keep our cholesterol levels down and keep our blood sugar levels down, right? And so that we can just continue to go on and be healthy. So with the daily value percentage of these micronutrients, these you want to have 20% or more. So the higher the percentage is for the micronutrients, the better that food is for you. So it's just all about balancing, right? Making sure that those less desirable things like fat and sodium, those are kept low, right? And the things that we do want, you know, the iron, the potassium, it could be vitamins A, B, C, it could be zinc, right? It's not just mutually exclusive to just the ones on this example. It could be any type of nutrient. You want to make sure that you have a bigger percentage of that. And so just to bring us home, because I know Jake is finishing up putting these together, it's just really all about personal preference. Whatever diet that you're going for, reading a nutrition label is all about how you want to use it. If you are in a diet right now where you are looking to get more calories throughout the day, right, then go for foods that have a higher calorie count per serving, right? Go for foods that have a higher protein density per serving. If you're looking to go on a diet and lose weight, right, keep the protein numbers low, but keep the daily values of those micronutrients high, and that way it can help to manage weight, right? So you're bringing in enough without losing too much. So I will wrap it up there. So thank you everybody for coming this week. Thank you everybody for watching at home. We look forward to seeing you guys for another session. Everybody online, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube. Check out any of our past videos, any of our past discussions that we've had. And thank you, everyone.
Are you taking any questions?
Yes.
Okay, mostly everything.